Good evening. Welcome once again to the podcast Zeppelin on the Malt Shop Radio Network. I am Malt Shop. I am your host for today's show. The podcast Zeppelin is a podcast about starting up a podcast as a beginner, and we're doing it by starting up a podcast as a beginner. I'd like to welcome back my special, awesome, super guest, the podcast Gremlin.
It's good to be back, if that's what that sound means.
That certainly is. It's kind of like Frau Blucher. Every time we say podcast, it's weird how that works. Shh, don't say it. Don't say it again. Well, welcome back. How are you doing?
Well, I, your fearless podcast gremlin.
Dang it.
I'm glad to be back.
Well, thank you. So, what are we here to talk about this week? Oh, by the way, we are in the engineering section of the dirigible, so it echoes a lot, and there are some animals running around here and some other people, so you may hear some noises going on. In any case, Podcast Gremlin, where can we find you and your podcasts?
You can find my current podcast is Food for Thought Police, which you can find at foodforthoughtpolice.com. That's foodforthoughtpolice.com. It's a podcast about dystopian novels, movies, stories.
It's very, very cool. High-quality podcast. I suggest everybody listen to it. You can find me at maltshopradio.weebly.com, and Friday evenings at 7 o'clock West Coast time, you can find me doing a live stream on maltshopradio.caster.fm, and you can see me on Facebook as well at Malt Shop Radio Entertainment. So look for me there. Be happy to answer any questions. Speaking of questions, we were talking last week a little bit about equipment for podcasting. The basics that you need are a microphone and a computer. What else do you need for basics?
Well, okay, there are two elements to it. For podcasting, it is necessarily online, so I guess you could pass it around on thumb drives, but that would not really be the ideal situation. You need a host to hold your podcasts, and then you need a domain name of some sort for people to go to. Those can be two different things, or you can get them through the same service.
Okay, now, do these costs much, or are they free?
There are ways to do it for free. If you have a little money to spend, we're talking like, maybe, if you have $200-300 a year, that'll get you through just fine. Oh,
okay. I did find that the company that I have my website on, Weebly.com, shameless plug, they have a free setup, but it doesn't include all the features that I would like to have, such as a store, such as hosting the actual podcast and music for download. But it's decent enough, and for a bump up to a professional one, it's only about $8 a month, where you get your own domain, and you get that store, and you get the hosting of whatever you decide to put up there.
Yeah, with a little more technical know-how, you can get your own hosting. I use the platform WordPress, but that's kind of like the F-35, where you can spend more and more time on it, just kind of trying to figure out how it's going to be the next awesome thing for you. Unless you really know computers, if you have a little more know-how, you can have a little more control over what you're doing. But something like paying for Weebly might be the way to go for you.
Yeah, for a lot of people it would be. Since I am not a programmer, I don't know how to do all the funky cool stuff. It's nice to have just simple, easy to use, very classy templates to work with. Speaking about that, last week talking about the hardware, you have an Apple Mac
Yes.
laptop.
Yes.
And a really, really nice headphone with a really good microphone on it, USB.
Yeah, I don't have the set here because we're in your studio, not mine. But my own podcast is more, it's a thing I do personally. So I've recorded it in a variety of locations. I spent about $50 on a headset, went to Best Buy, just a USB headset. It might be LG. So with that, you get a fairly good on-purpose microphone as opposed to just whatever the heck they stuck in your computer so you can do Skype.
Yeah. For my setup, I like to have more than one person with me. You can very easily do a very professional podcast just by yourself with your computer and a microphone and a headset. But if you want to have more people, you either have to have a microphone that is set up to be able to listen to multiple people. Like a Blue Yeti makes one that's a USB microphone. It's very high quality. You can have 2 or 3 people sitting around the table, and it'll hear everybody just fine. Very good quality. If you want to do a little bit more with it, have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, you'll need a mixing board, one that is labeled as a USB mixing board, plugs into the computer, and works with your equipment. And my particular mixing board, it's a Mackie Pro FX12. It does stereo USB in, so I can pan microphones left and right if I want true stereo. But I can have up to 6 people with XLR microphones. We are talking on 2 different types of microphones. The podcast Gremlin is talking on a Cobalt microphone. It's a very inexpensive one. Got it on sale. Great. It does have a pop filter. Looks pretty nice. Sounds great.
And the pop filter is added. It's not like it came with it.
No, I bought that on the internet. It came from China.
I could imagine a pop filter. You just get a pop filter, any pop filter. Don't tell me which one it is. Put it back in the deck, shuffle it up. Is this your pop filter?
That is the pop filter.
Ah, the magic trick worked.
Dang. Well, pop filters are there are all sorts of prices, all sorts of everything. You can get them for $100 or you can get them for $15. I don't have a huge budget. I got mine for $15. The microphone I use is an MXL 550 condenser microphone. Beautiful microphone. Condensers tend to be a bit fragile, so if you drop it, you've just wasted a lot of money. I don't know if I'd recommend a condenser microphone for most people. I bought it on recommendation. I've been very happy with the sound. Let's see, what else do we got going?
Let's see. Oh, just a side note, the built-in microphone on a MacBook Pro, if that's what you're working with. We once recorded a podcast on the film Blade Runner for Food for Thought Police, and that actually turned out fairly nicely. So if you have nothing else, if you just, if you're on the go, if you don't know what to get yet, you can do a few episodes that way, or if you forget your microphone, you'll be okay.
Okay, all right. Now, we've talked about the hardware. Let's talk a little bit about the software. Recording your podcast, it has to be recorded by something. You're not using the recording thing that's default in your computer.
No, I understand that Mac has some fairly powerful software loaded straight up, but I'm not really familiar with it. I haven't used it.
Okay, so what do you use?
I actually use Audacity. It's for my podcast because it's just me. I can just record right into Audacity, have a little fine tuning on the audio, but most of my special effects and things, if I have them, those are post-production. I just record myself talking and then add the intro tune and then the exit tune, and it all shapes up nicely.
Now, Audacity is a free product.
That is correct. Though, if you want to export MP3s, you need to download there's a LAME encoder thing.
Mm-hmm, yes.
But Audacity is pretty great. It's fairly user-friendly. It's a little intimidating, but spend a little time with it and it'll be fine.
I actually use Audacity as well. When I got it, I didn't know what to do with it. It really does help to have a teenager around.
Yes.
Mainly, I just use Audacity for editing. As you said, you do a lot of your work in post-production, adding in sound effects, music, and whatnot. I tend to like to go live. As I said before, I have a Friday night, 7 o'clock left coast time show that I do. You're going to be joining me with that. That's in about 34 minutes or so from now, at least at the time of this recording. But instead of using Audacity for that, I use it to do some post-production work. Mainly, I use Mix. That's Mix with 3 X's, Mix 2.0. It is a broadcasting software. It is also open source and free. Fantastic DJ software. Has everything that you could possibly need. There's another broadcasting solution that's used by radio stations. It's called Sam Broadcaster. And it is, I think, $150 to $300, depending on which version you use. I happen to have an old version of it. It's a bit of a hot mess. Amazing software, but you really need to take a class on it. It does not have some things that Lame has that I really, really like, such as waveforms for the music you're about to play to make you able to cue up the music just right. It also has a recording function, so it can record whatever you're playing, whatever you're doing. It works with multiple microphones. If you don't have a soundboard, you're going in through USB ports. It allows that. It allows a number of different auxiliary inputs, and it's just all around a neat thing. Looks at your library, your music library on your computer if you're doing music DJing. Highly recommend that. And I use Audacity, of course, to clip together the recordings. Should I go overly long, and it separates them for the long 3-hour recordings, it'll cut them into pieces. You just put them back together in Audacity, do a little bit of monkey work there, and goof around and have a whole lot of fun.
Audacity being open source does take a little getting used to, so it's not like a proprietary program where it's a little easier that if you just kind of click on something haphazardly, it'll guess what you want to do. Like, for instance, on my Mac, if I unplug my headphones while it's there, I can't really just plug them back in and then it works again. Or the other way around, if I open it and my headphones aren't plugged in, then it's not going to recognize them. So then I need to have Audacity closed, plug my headphones in, choose those through the system, and then open Audacity up.
Yeah, fortunately, I haven't had that problem with Mix. I've had all sorts of other problems, but mostly they were caused by me, not the program. It is a complex software. It is not completely user-friendly, but it's a whole lot more user-friendly than Sam Broadcaster.
Yeah, keeping in mind what you want to do is really pretty important.
Yes. For broadcasting live stuff, you do need a DJ software that can broadcast on the internet. For recording a podcast, Audacity does great. There's probably not a better product out there, and certainly not one for free.
I've done it. I've used Audacity for 50 plus episodes.
Yeah, absolutely excellent software. What else do we got on our agenda for today?
Well, let's see. Oh, yes, right. Well, you're talking about DJ software, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and
Yeah.
you kind of came up a big radio file. Why do you think podcasting is popular now?
Well, that does go back to radio. Since radio was founded, a Marconi thing, uh, radio was one of the most popular forms of entertainment, especially for those who lived away from the city, which was a majority of the population. They'd turn on the Marconi and they'd listen to whatever was offered them, and they had a great time. Eventually, DJs became characters and later became talent in the 50s and the 60s, and really in the 70s. The 60s and 70s with Wolfman Jack, and the 70s and 80s with Dr. Don Rose. Amazing DJs. They had just great personalities and were able to spin the records that you really wanted to hear, and didn't care really what the producers, the record producers wanted, or their show producers wanted. They just did what they wanted, and because of that, they were able to bring you great music and talk up records, give you a little history behind them, tell stories of how they met the people. Really great stuff. But late 90s, early 2000s, radio companies started buying up radio stations. Now, most of the radio stations in the U.S. are owned by like five companies, and they've become very homogenous. You're getting maybe one DJ doing the records that he's told to do for 30 or 40 or 50 stations across the country. So there's no locality to it.
You could consider it perhaps to the expansion of Budweiser running over local beers.
Yeah. But there was a comeback from that. And the Budweiser thing, what happened to that? Microbreweries, high quality beers. There are, I think locally, there are something like 12 microbreweries that are doing really well. What happened with radio? A lot of the talent left, and like people like Howard Stern, they started doing what's the radio company that doesn't go over radio? XM Radio. That's the one. He started doing that, and other talent started doing podcasting, where they play records. They played songs that you will not ever hear on over-the-air radio. They'll play B-sides. They'll play new albums from artists that have been around for a long time. Paul McCartney just recently put out an album that was phenomenal. You won't hear that on the radio. There are a lot of older artists who put that out. There are new artists who are getting a lot of people coming to their shows. Way more people than you would ever think, making a great career, but they can't get their stuff on the radio. They get their music on podcasts. There's also a lot of those DJs started doing talk podcasts, where they talk about history, they talk about whatever they want to. It gives a lot of people the stuff that they want to hear, making it so much more popular than radio now. And it's on demand. You download the show when it's out. You listen to it when you have the time.
Yeah. Like, also, you can follow a podcast weekly. Like, iTunes will download automatically things for you. But, like, one thing I do, I've taken some long road trips recently, and I just stack up podcasts all in a row, so then it's just one after the other. Oh yes, that's one thing you might want to consider if you do a podcast.
Yes.
Make your intro and exit fairly simple and not repeating the same thing on both ends. Because I understand if I hear the same intro with each successive episode, but if I hear the same thing at the front end and the back end of each episode, I'm going to hear it 4 times if I listen to 2 episodes in a row.
Yeah. It is good to have the same intro music and the same outro music. just for continuity. But you don't want to have the same thing on both ends. And speaking of which, what's that sound I hear? What's that sound I hear? Oh, it's the Foundations. Build Me Up, Buttercup. It's such a good song. And every time you listen to this, you're probably going to hear this on the way out. Thank you, Podcast Gremlin.
You're quite welcome.
It's been wonderful having you listen. Don't forget to like me on Facebook, especially like me on Caster FM. That gets me some free stuff. What else do I have to ask you? Tune in next time. I don't know when the next podcast will be out, but look at me on Facebook, and I will have guesstimates of when the next one will be out. Thank you again for listening, and have a wonderful week. Oh, I hope this Zeppelin doesn't crash.
I run to the door, I can't take anymore. It's not you, you let me down again.